person, but I was so like nonchalant.
It's okay. We're good now. Okay. So you're live.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Hey
Okay.
guys.
Right. So no, no, no. So like when somebody tells you that you're over the top, because that's what we were talking about, right? Because we're
Yes.
just finding ways to be us, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But it takes work, right? So it was so funny. So this weekend, or not this week, this week, I was hanging out with some of my coworkers in one of the offices, and there's like girls talking back and forth, right? So sometimes there's like a
In a lot of
miscommunication.
different ways. Yes.
Yeah. So one of the girls was like, "You're too much," and the other girl was like, "Wait, what? Like Narita's not too much?" And I was like, "Okay," like, And then we started talking about something else. Yeah, and it was super nonchalant, like, "Okay," and then it came back to that comment, and then I told the girl like, "Yeah, you just said I was too much," and she was like, "Oh no, 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 no!" She was like, "That's not what I meant. I meant like this other coworker." And then the other girl who like also overheard, thinking that it was me, she was like, "Oh, like I also thought that you meant Narita." And then
Mm,
she started laughing because she was like, "Narita, you were so nonchalant about somebody telling you that you were too much." And I was like, "Oh yeah, because I'm not for everybody." So then the girl who said it like
amen.
accidentally was like, "I am so sorry, like that's not what I meant." I'm like, "No, no, no, like don't apologize." She was like, "If it was something like this, like I would tell you one on one." And I was like, "I wouldn't even take it personal if you told me in a group of people.
Right.
Like, it's okay." I was like, unless you had like beef, I was like, then it'd be cool to just say it one on one. But like, if you have a perspective or an opinion about me, like, I totally don't care if you say it in a group of people.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. I like that. I appreciate that. That's great.
yeah. But again, it's like it takes not work, but it's like if this was like 10 years ago, I probably would have went home and been in my head about it. And this time it was just like, okay, like,
Yeah. For me, it was be a shorter period of time, but yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then
And
I told
I
her
would
too.
still get in my head over it because I have a lot of conditioning around that, right? About like,
Yeah,
how dare you? Don't you know who I am? Or whatever. And so
yeah,
just like stuff like that.
yeah. I think for me, it was like also like, oh, it just shows me where you're at with me. So I'm just not going to spend enough time with you. It's just work related.
Right.
Yeah, if it was somebody like maybe you or like Daryl, or if it was like a close friend and they said that I was too much, then it hits me differently.
Oh yeah, because it's kind of like, wait a minute, everything was going along swimmingly, and that sounds like a cut.
Yeah, yes, yeah. Now I'm hurt.
Now I'm hurt. I'm hurt, and I don't know why. I don't know why I'm hurt because I'm not attached to what you're talking about,
Yeah, yeah.
and I don't want to do any trigger work right now. So it's your fucking fault.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's my
Yesterday,
favorite. That's my go-to.
yeah,
Is that it has to be something outside first before it can be
yes.
me.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It was so funny because yesterday Daryl and I got into like a little, like just not argument, but same thing, right? And it was, and
Like a discussion.
he was just sharing his feelings and one of the things that he desired, and I got triggered. And it was like, well, and then like we went our separate ways. I had to go to work, and then I'm like, oh, he was just sharing. I gotta do some reflection. Like, fuck, I don't want to do that today.
No, I set aside anytime I can any kind of shadow work that I have to do because I know it's a process. And then
Yeah.
I kind of look to see like where else I'm being triggered, not so I could do it all at once, but so I could do it all at once because I don't like to.
Get it out the way.
I want to be done. Damn it!
Today's shadow work day. I'm clocked in.
Every day is a great day for shadow work day. Just call it Illumination Day,
Oh, there
right?
you go.
You're bringing that shit into illumination, so call it Illumination Day.
I like that.
Yay!
Illumination.
Congratulations! Today is an auspicious day. Shadow
Yeah.
Illumination Day. You'll be like quaking in your boots and shit.
I
So
like
we
that better
had
than
two
triggering.
cards. Two cards came out. Pardon me. Two cards came out. So what we're doing is here's what we're going to do. We have a banner that I'll go ahead and I'll put across there. I'll write one. It just depends. And
Okay.
then we're going to pull some cards, and we will then talk about like what the cards are. That'll create our subject. And then if
Okay.
anybody wants to go ahead and comment on that and tell us where you're at, and
Mm.
if you need like support or something like that, or if you'd like to pull a subject that like you're going through, we would love to speak to that. and you'll get different perceptions. Okay. And then we're going to talk about processing and how to do the processing.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
Down.
great. So the two cards I got today, oh, dude, right? So the two cards I got today was the Queen of Cups. So she's going to be the player. All right. I
Okay.
know. She's Cancer. That's who she is. She's Cancer, the sign
She looks
Cancer.
very
You can see, and she has a Piscean. See how her by her heart she has that sign of Pisces, right?
yeah,
So that means
that's
she's
my sign.
super intuitive with her emotional well-being and her I would say her intuition from her heart, because like we read from our heart sensory information and energy. All right. And so with that Piscean symbol right there, and then she's holding the cup, so she's already learned how to
Mm,
because Pisces is like two fish swimming against each other, right? So she's already learned how to pull her intuition into her heart so that she has
mm,
a more accurate read, right? And then
okay.
you could see that like up here is like Cancer, because that's her representation, so that would be her midheaven. So she's going to be very home centered, right?
Okay.
Nurturing, family, things like that. Okay. So this is going to be the archetype energy that we're
Mm,
looking at today.
okay.
Okay. Water
I
energy,
like the gold. It feels
right?
very like it's exotic, but also very kind of like with respect almost.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful. It's a good card.
Yeah.
I like this card. Okay.
Okay.
And then the other card that came out, right? Okay, so that's the
Mhm.
archetype. So we're all in our divine feminine. We're going into our intuition. That's kind of like what it feels like. And I
Okay.
think that with our conditioning, that our intuition needs a broader dictionary and
Mm,
language, right? To
yeah.
where we become more inclusive with our thoughts, because we have to become more inclusive with our thoughts and our
Yeah.
feelings. We have
Yeah.
to become more inclusive with our thoughts and our feelings. And
And
so
you're
I
right too. It's like the act of like knowing more in terms of like vocabulary helps you so much more to get in touch with your intuition too. Because it's a lot of us like that logic we gotta know. So when you have
Mhm.
a vocabulary, it's like okay, it connects that part.
Oh, yeah,
It's
and you know
like
what? Okay, so recently, this is like okay, so here's the other card, okay? The other card is the Fool card, which is a major arcana, okay?
oh,
And Uranus, that's the glyph for Uranus. Okay, Uranus went direct yesterday. So now we're all on a different journey. We're
mm,
on such a different journey today. Today is a super auspicious journey, okay? But
okay,
such a different journey today compared to yesterday.
okay, yeah,
Way different today than yesterday. And it has to do with like the magnetism of the planets, push and pull and all that stuff, but it also
mm,
has to do with like how we treat ourselves in proximity to the transits, because the transits, like the solar flares have effects on us, so
yeah,
naturally other planetary action is going to have effects on us.
that makes
And so
sense.
with this
Yeah.
one I would say, so Uranus is like the planet of disruption and destruction, so shaking you up, right?
Mm, oh
And
man,
it's in an earth sign. It's been in my earth sign for
oh
like
man,
I don't know how many
is that
years.
why I woke up super off today? Is that the answer?
Yes,
I was like, what
yes.
the
It's kind of
heck
like,
is
ooh,
going on?
freedom. Hell
I had
yeah,
to
we're
like
letting
shake it
girls
off and
play
like
today.
dance a
That's
little
right.
bit.
Exactly. Absolutely. And so
Um,
that's kind of like the energy of the moment for all of us. And we're kind of navigating it. It is the beginning. I would say it's the beginning uh the of Aquarius. Like we're entering the age of Aquarius. And so this is going to be painful. That transition is going to be painful. And we're going from Capricorn, okay, from Pluto in Capricorn to
okay.
Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto in Capricorn. So Capricorn is a very dense earth, uh, the grown up of the earth. So all your material wealth, everything that you thought about your material wealth is very like this, very like, no,
Okay.
it's like this. And Saturn is like the planet inside of that house. So you can only imagine all this structure, right?
Okay.
So Pluto is the planet of depth. All right. Wants to know like Uranus will go ahead and pull the band-aid off, rip the band-aid off.
Ooh,
Pluto will dive in to find out what the fuck is going on. Okay.
that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all about death and transformation. Pluto
Okay.
is. Yeah, hell yeah. So
Transformation.
it moved from Capricorn, death and transformation in our earth aspects. So all of our material idealism and everything like that, it moved out of there because all that shit changed, right? And now it
Okay.
moved into Aquarius, which is air energy. So all of our thought processes, the
Mm.
depth of our thought processes, existentialism, we're going to have for breakfast in the morning.
Accidental for breakfast. Great.
So I think different things about that, but I think that's pretty fun.
Okay.
So what's your take on like how we talk to one another? Like how come I have a question for you, okay?
Yeah.
How come I am so how come it's so easy for me to not internalize an internal problem? Why is that? What is that that goes on with me and maybe other people to where I automatically think it's outside of me? Like why
Mm.
is that? How come that happens? So
Mm.
what's your feedback on that? Does that happen for you like that?
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's kind of like what we started the conversation with, like we pointing fingers, right? Like it's somebody else.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it
Yeah.
does happen to me for sure.
Okay, but like why do you think we do that? Why do you think we do that?
I I think that it's a part of us maybe not wanting to take accountability or to self-reflect,
Okay.
or because sometimes it feels like when we do that, or it's like, okay, maybe it's not them, it's actually me. It could change or shake something within us that we
Mhm.
don't want it to shake. Maybe it
Okay.
could be our personality or our actions, or sometimes we think that we are so right on this one thing. And if we take a moment to like self reflection, we're wrong. It's like, oh crap, like, how are we going to take that if we're wrong?
Right.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And
But you and I are at different degrees of we're at different depths of what we're investigating internally.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
But
I
I
think
also
that
think
some of
like
it go ahead.
yesterday I was talking to one of my friends about emotional intelligence, and
Okay.
she was like, "Oh, like you have to want it." And I was like, "Yeah, I can see that. Like I can totally see." And I also mentioned like another comment where it was like sometimes I think kids have like a really rough background, and sometimes it just comes to them where they have to have emotional awareness to survive.
Right?
But I think like even though we're on different spectrums of exploring our within, I think we are so driven to continue to do the work. Where it's like, okay, we may not do it in the moment, right? Because it's like, fuck, I don't want to do it today.
Well, a
Today
lot
is
of
not the
times for
day.
me,
But it's
go ahead.
but it just I think it happens because I think the more we're aware of it, I think it becomes a choice. Like yesterday, where Daryl and I got into this miscommunication, where I felt very reactive, but I also didn't like feeling that way. And it's like, okay, like I don't like
That's
feeling this
it. That's
way.
it right there. That's mhm.
And then it becomes very self reflective. Like, okay, he was just trying to innocently tell me something about his feelings and his needs. Why did I react? And then it becomes like that shadow work as I'm driving to work.
You know what I'm finding out more? Here's what I'm finding out more. Is
Uh-huh.
that when my partner, right? When my partner,
Uh-huh.
who I think gets me and understands that I'm doing shit. I'm doing
Mm.
shit. And so when they get well, that sounds like a lot of fucking white privilege, huh? With a brown man.
It is.
Yeah. And
It's
he's raised traditionally. So yes, so we are like
totally
constantly
different.
like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yep. I
Right.
can see that.
And
Yeah.
he has a little bit of yeah, so he has a little bit of that too, you know. And we just kind of neither one of us want to get into it, but it's always a disruption when somebody comes and asks you to do something, right? And
Yeah.
so I constantly ask him if he'll help me with shit. And
Uh-huh.
he often will ask me to help him as well. How I show up is
Mhm.
totally not totally different, is different than how he shows up. And
Uh-huh.
it'll depend. We're very similar, okay?
Uh-huh.
But like,
Yeah.
both of us are just a little different in that little our realm,
Yeah.
And so today I think it was like I needed eye solution. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And he's getting ready to go to the NAM show. And so he's like, yeah, sure, I'll go get that for you. And then he only wants to ask me one question. And I'm like getting ready and everything. I'm like, oh man, I'm all busy now.
Yeah. Like,
Oh
don't
God,
ask me
you did
anything.
that for me. And so I think to myself, I go, oh, well, damn, stop what you're doing. Just stop what you're doing and really listen,
Yeah.
be present. Cause like I'm all up in my head, right? And I
Yeah.
think that has a lot to do with it is that like when we get disrupted from a task orientation or we have this time thing that we're like living
Yeah.
in, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so when I disengaged from the show before we started, right? And I was able to be really present for him, that made
Mhm.
it easier for me. It made it
Okay.
so much easier for me. And it wasn't like I was just trying to, because my old behavior, part of my old behavior is just like, yeah, here's whatever. Yeah, you could, yeah, get out of my way. I got to do things instead of
Yeah.
just present. It's just like, here, take whatever you want and get out of my way. And this
Yeah.
time, yeah, right. And so I've grown a lot there. But I
Mhm.
think that takes like a shit ton of practice.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of patience too. Because I totally relate to you. The way that it's come up for me, it's like it sounds kind of like shitty, but it's like, oh, this is an inconvenience right now. Like I'm so focused here, like you're being an inconvenience to
Exactly.
me.
Exactly. And we have been asking for our male counterparts to become more sensitive and to listen to us and
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah. And we didn't know what the outcome was. And the outcome
Yeah.
was is that they like it and they want to talk now. And we're like, but dude, like I've done all that
Still
work.
on my
Go do your
time,
work.
which is also not good. It's a
And then you find
contradiction.
out that that's your work. That's your work right
It's like the contradiction,
there.
right? Of like, I want this, but at my own time too.
Oh man. Oh man.
Yeah,
So it works out really good, huh?
it does. More of
So
that
yeah, so
work.
I think that for me, like one of the reasons that I like to put it outside is because I remember
Mm.
like if I can identify the trigger, right? And I
Uh-huh.
don't even have to really identify it down to like the year or anything like that.
Yeah.
I can just start to feel it and know that it happened in my past and be like, oh, hell no, I'm not jumping in that pool right now.
Oh,
I'm just not doing that right now. And then I'll
yeah.
just hold on to it and I'll wait
Okay.
and I'll process later because I don't like to. I had, dude, okay. So I was going through a process for a couple of years, right?
Uh-huh.
And like a really deep transformational process. And
Okay.
one day I learned to emote. I
What's
learned
emo?
to emote. And uh, just showing your emotions,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Okay. And so I was watching something and I didn't know that I was going to go through another deep transformation that I wouldn't be able to come out of, but I allowed myself to start feeling. And what it was Shanti, 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 the chant. All right,
Okay.
came
Heard of
on, and
it.
Daniel and I were watching a drumming thing, and it was really good, very touching, very moving. So it connected my head brain and
Mm.
my heart brain, and I was really open, and I was just like, "Oh, this is so beautiful." And then Shanti, Shanti, Shanti came on, and I was like, and all of a sudden, it was like one of those
Oh.
best ugly cry ever. And
Yeah.
Manuel was pinned to his seat because he didn't know how to help me.
Oh.
And I
Yeah.
couldn't communicate to him. And he's
Your
like, do I
needs.
call the ambulance?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, don't move. Just stay there. And he's just like, oh shit. So I took
Yeah.
him on this emotional roller coaster route. I was feeling because he is like my safety thing. And then I
Yes.
realized, oh dude, here I am creating that other fucking attachment. Get out of the boat.
Yes. Yeah. Because
Get out of the
with
boat.
that, it comes like
Yeah. But
expectation.
I realized, and so I asked him after the thing, right? I asked him,
Yeah.
I said, so are you okay?
Yeah. Let's talk about
They
your
asked
feelings
him if he
now.
was okay because it was like something that I probably would never do, but I did, and I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna have my moment right now because I need to have my moment. Blah.
Yeah.
And, and so his feedback was, I'm okay. I just, that was a lot to watch
Yeah.
you have all those emotions and me
Mhm.
not be able to do anything to help you. That was a lot for me. And I
Okay.
said,
Yeah.
cool. Thank you so much. I love you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And so we've broken it out here and there, you know, to where like it's kind of an agreement now that I'm not gonna I'm not gonna
Just like
sob
note.
in front of him. I'm not gonna sob in front of him. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna be a little bit, you know. And so like that's why, you know, we need processing places
Yeah.
that are quiet, that let us meditate by ourselves so that way we can go through those things, you know. That's what,
Yeah.
you know, I think
I
anyway.
totally agree. Yeah, because even in those moments, we also know what we want. Because it's like, I think, one, I think with the relationship part too, it feels like you're right. It becomes like they become a safe place for us. They become like like our person. But
Right.
then with that, I realized that there's expectations where it's like, oh, now I'm expecting you to be there for me all the time when I'm in my feelings. And you better be there or else I'm mad.
That's right, because you're my dumping ground, baby.
Right? And then again, like it comes into that self-reflection moment of like, okay, hold on. You're also another human being. Like we're choosing to be
Oh yeah,
together.
I don't know if that
Like,
ever even comes into my fucking mind. I got to really be honest about that. I once in a while will be like, "Oh yeah, I love you." I'll be
yeah.
like, "Oh yeah, I love you," and that's like as close as I get to like, "Oh yeah, you're human." That you know, that's probably the biggest connection right there.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. But well, with that moments too, right? Like even it's knowing too like, okay, what do I need? Because in the moments if I am in my feelings, I can express that like, hey, I need just to vent. And it's working process, right? Like, hey, I
Right.
need some advice. Right? I need
Yeah,
this. And now
that
more and more it's
communication,
becoming
that
this thing like,
preface
hey, I
is
don't need a
really important.
solution. Like, don't go in your head, like try to find a solution for me. Like just be present with me.
Right.
Yeah. But then it also makes me wonder, like, we're also human beings. Like, what if we don't even have in the moment emotions are so big where we don't even have the space to say what we need. We just want to cry. Because it also feels like we have to schedule our cry.
Yeah.
And
You
I
do
don't know,
have
is
to
that normal?
schedule your emotions because we're well, because like sometimes so so the world as a collective naturally is going through this emotional challenge of trigger, like
Okay.
globally. And so we're paying attention to a lot of contrast. And as we pay attention to a lot of contrast, we're being triggered internally from previous experiences. It could be
Yeah.
past lives, it could be yesterday, it could be childhood, it could be anything, but it's inner work, right?
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
all those terms like self-realization, what you're doing is you're going internally, you're finding out where the charge is, and you're saying, "Ooh, let me soothe you through this until the charge
Mhm.
drops and tell you I love you. Thank you for showing the fuck up." Right?
Yeah.
And then you just like you lessen it. But when that first initial trigger shows up, the charge is usually so overwhelming because it drops you right back
Mhm.
into that
The
energy.
space. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're like, I don't know what to do because you didn't know what to do at that time. So you did what you did with all the information that you could gather in that moment. So that's
Uh-huh.
the most powerful moment of healing is in that realization that you showed up and you did everything right. So
Yeah.
when you understand that, yes. And so when you understand that you're just like, I did everything I could. Then all of a sudden the charge goes down. You're not trying to hold yourself accountable through somebody else's
Mm.
actions, right? And then
Yeah.
you're like, I showed up. I did right. I'm good. And
Yeah.
that's super important. And I don't think we spend a lot of time doing that. But you're right.
Yeah.
Scheduling cries, scheduling cries. Yeah. The other day was like another one. Cause I don't you take on other people's
Oh
energy?
yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you
I'm
do?
practicing I'm practicing on being aware, okay, is this mine or is this not mine?
Okay.
And again, like I think like the meditation or just being alone, like I know some people are afraid of it, but it's like, oh, there's so much good juice when you spend time alone because you're able to come up with your own questions, with your own feelings of what your vibe is. So in those moments, right, when I take other people's emotions, it's like, hold on, like I was happy before, but now something's going on with me. Like what just happened in the last like 2 hours?
Right.
And then it becomes my own practice of, okay, I need to go meditate or I need to sage. And I work with little kids, right? So, and it's sometimes it's very heavy all the time, and I
Right.
can feel it. It feels like muck just on me.
I know,
So
I
when I
felt that.
yeah, so when I have clients back to back, like I could feel it, and it's like I come home and I sage myself, like, okay, this is not mine, whatever's not mine, like I release you, go back to the universe.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that, well, when we work with other people, don't you feel like when you work with other people, that in itself is kind of like processing?
Yeah.
Because you're going to have many triggers that come up like
Yeah.
throughout. And do
Yeah.
you think that it has a lot to do with like how you were raised and like what goes on with you for that?
Like the triggers popping up?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of all of it, where it's like the childhood stuff and then your past experiences as until up until yesterday.
Okay.
Right? Like every day, because it's something that I realized recently is like, oh, like trauma and that muck could still happen as an adult. It's not just childhood stuff.
No.
It's like, okay, like, so it's good to be aware where it's coming from. If you
Right.
can, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But even when working with clients, like, it's true. It's like you work with clients and they're telling you something, or you can feel the energy, and then all of a sudden you feel a certain way, or you feel like emotions, or again like the trigger or like off, and it's like, okay, I have to pin this and come back to it later, because right now it's the client, it's not about me.
Right. And the
Yeah.
thing is that you're still realizing that you're being triggered. So you know that you
Mhm.
have to come back to it and that you're going to work through it so that way the next time that you have a similar circumstance, you could show up in a more present way. And
Yeah.
that's really what we're working on when you talk about inner work, right? Is so that you can
Yeah.
be present in your now experience.
Yes.
And we have
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
love that because it's true, and it's like there's so much beauty, and I think this is why I love doing this work too, because it's like there's so much beauty in the moment. Like there's so much when you're presently with your body and yourself, there's so much curiosity, there's so much play. There could be like that genuine joy. And it's like sometimes we're not there because we're still stuck on something from the past, or we're reminiscing, or and it's like, oh, like that's part of the inner work, is to go back and to process it in your own space or with somebody you trust, so you can actually release it or
yeah,
transform it into something else, but it's not so heavy in your present moment anymore.
right. Yeah, I think that I like that. I like that observation. That observation is very accurate. It's also, I think it's difficult sometimes to understand what all the word is around inner healing. And I
Yeah.
think that a lot of people maybe make it out to be something like, you know, how we all anchor into contrast?
Hmm.
We do. We just anchor into contrast. We become like problem solvers,
Yeah.
mathematicians, teachers, right? And so
Yeah.
we'll anchor into contrast because that's where we feel, all right, that we're going to get something done, some physical aspect done so that we can receive whatever the subject is, right? But the
Mm-hmm.
subject has two poles, negative and positive. And we're just conditioned to jump into the negative aspect to fix that so that we only have positivity. But
Hmm.
you can choose positivity and recognize that there is negativity and not go there. We just don't know how to do that. So when we're
Yeah.
doing our internal work, we're basically like we're an equalizer. An equalizer, have you ever seen an equalizer with all the
Mhm.
buttons that go up and
Oh,
down
yes, yes,
like
yes,
this?
yes. Yeah.
Okay, so in music,
Yeah.
so we're frequency, right? So if you have it all in a straight line in the middle, okay, it's going to play tonal, all right? And it's going to be kind of like
Yeah.
monotone. Okay,
Okay.
but we're fuller than that. So maybe we accentuate our bass, maybe we dial down our treble, you know, just different things, right? And we're
Yeah.
nuanced. We're a nuanced frequency, right? And
Yeah.
if we right, and then we never really come into like that single tone. We're changing the wave that we're
Yeah.
emitting. And so we're everything that we think and we're everything that we feel. And that is our vibration. So
Okay.
whatever you're thinking and feeling in that focus, that's what you're projecting. It's
Okay.
exactly what you're
Yes.
projecting.
Yeah. Yes.
And
Yeah.
so when you understand that this is like, because like I have a lot of thoughts. I'm thinking right now, I'm thinking about like next week, I'm thinking about the car, I'm thinking about maybe I'm not talking right, maybe these things could take place. And maybe, you know,
Uh,
oh, this is a really good show and I'm really happy I'm doing this with Narita.
Me
And oh,
too.
hey, I'm talking too much. All of that, all of
Mhm.
that is my energy. That's everything in my, not everything, that's like some of the things in my mind, right? And when we
Yeah.
recognize that, we could pull a focus that feels better to us and more aligned and more authentic. But how do you
Mhm.
do that when you're in the middle of a conversation and you feel like you're going to emote in that moment? Like, how would you do that? Like,
Emote. No,
oh,
I'm
so
just
you
kidding.
didn't, you had already, your new word.
I think we're having a session right now. We're just gonna
It's like a
emote.
bird molting. It's like a bird molting. Okay. Feathers are falling out all over the place when you're processing, right? So I'm
Yes. Yeah.
emoting.
I like it. I think when it's happening in the moment, I love vulnerability. So for me, it's like saying it in the moment, like
Okay.
helps me. Right.
Okay.
So let's say I'm nervous. Like sometimes I'll say it before or during, like, oh, I'm a little nervous, guys.
Oh, okay.
Right. Or like the thoughts when it comes to like what you were saying of like me being, let's say, in a conversation with another person, and I'm like, oh, am I talking too much? Am I talking too less? I'm very aware of the thought and I'll immediately think of, no, you're fine. You're okay.
Right.
Like, and it kind of just
Give yourself
subsides.
permission right off the bat. I love
Oh,
that.
yeah. Like, it's always like, you're okay. And then I can jump on it really quick again and just like, okay, we're cool. But then later, right, like when I'm done with the conversation, sometimes they'll pop up like, oh, I could have said that. I could have said this. That happened recently. Like, I did a podcast with my really good friend about friendship breakups, and it was 2 hours.
Okay.
And I listened to it and I was like, crap, I could have said this. I could have said that. Like, the whole time I'm like laughing. So there's like a lot of that self judgment. And again, it becomes like, okay, Nerida, like, you're fine. It's okay. You did the thing. Like, that alone is a great thing. Like, give yourself credit for just that. And
Right.
then it kind of goes away, but it comes back up.
Okay.
So for
You know
me,
what
it
I
feels
really
like,
like about that whole exercise is that you go
uh,
into recognition of where you're at.
yeah,
When you go into recognition of where you're at, you get to choose where you want to be. That's
yeah,
the difference, right?
yeah.
And it is a practice. It's a practice because it's all meditation to me. Everything is meditation. Like we're focused in this right now because we're doing a show together. And then it might be like, did the toaster get left on? Oh, wait a minute. We're doing this show, right? So
Yes,
just
it's
recognizing
really
that,
present. You have to be
yeah,
present.
right. And so, yeah, so I really like that. But that was what I really received from you is that you recognize where you're at and then you
Yeah,
can make a choice. So that's
yeah.
a very powerful tool, a
And
very
again,
powerful.
it takes time too. Because I remember just like years ago, like asking a friend, like, how do you know when you're being honest with yourself? I had no idea what that looked like. Like, what the heck?
I'm always honest with myself in the moment of what the knowledge is that I wish to tell myself. And that is
Yeah,
my
even if
fucking
they're
truth.
like low key lies, I'm still being honest.
But that's my truth because like
But
we're in our perception, right?
yeah,
Right? We're in our
but
perception.
yeah, but I don't. There's a moment in my life where I could feel that I was lying to myself, but I didn't want to be honest with myself.
No.
Right? Like, so ever since that, I always feel like, well, do people actually know when they're lying to themselves, but they choose not to be honest with themselves? Like, is it a choice? You know, like,
Sometimes it is. So,
yeah,
okay, so I knew I had a problem. All right.
uh,
And I would tell everybody that I was partying with, yeah, I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, I'm an addict. Yeah, I'm an addict. And I'd be
uh,
like, and and I have an agreement with God. I know him, he knows me, and we leave each other the fuck alone. And that was like my religion for a long time.
okay,
Okay.
yeah,
And mostly what it was that I was still in recognition, but I was lying to myself because I wasn't doing anything about it. It was truth, but
okay,
there was no accountability in that truth. So I was staying in the pain. I was in recognition, but I didn't know how
yeah,
to change it. I didn't know anything to do that was going to make what I was experiencing any different
mm,
because I
okay,
kept doing the same thing over and over and over again, hoping for a
yeah.
different result. Right?
So it's exactly what you're saying. It's like in the moment, you're already trying your best. Like that's as honest as you could be in the moment.
Bam.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Because
I
it's true. 'Cause
also noticed,
even what you said too, it's like, oh, like I didn't know how.
I didn't.
Me neither.
I didn't know
So
how.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I wasn't, my father, I have like a background, right? And so my
Mhm.
dad and my mom were drinkers, and my mom died when I was young. And then my dad fell into the bottle for a while. And then all of a sudden he got into recovery when I was when I was 20. And well, was it 20? Yeah, it was 20. I was 20 years old. And I was
Okay.
very resentful, super
Mhm.
resentful, because now he wanted to show up as a parent. And I was like, who the fuck are you? I don't
Yeah.
know you. For 20 years, I've had to do this shit by myself. Any kind of advice you've given me, I've had to roll through already. And I was very resentful and angry. And I wanted his love so desperately that I couldn't process. So
Mhm.
I fell in the bottle. So
Yeah.
here he is. He's going into recovery, and I'm doing what I'm conditioned to for
Yeah.
solution, which is everything that I'm seeing around me. And the only things I was seeing around me was how he would try to numb like his experience or escape his experience. But I didn't call it that. I
Yeah.
called that, oh, yeah, that's like the 5 o'clock time.
Yeah.
So that was my interpretation of my actions at that time.
Yeah. And again,
Right.
because like in the moment you just don't know anything else.
You don't. You really
Yeah.
don't. Right.
Yeah.
And even if we have like experiences that we share with other people, right, they're still going to desire their own experiences
Mhm.
because that's what they're here for.
That's true. That's
That's
so
what they're
true.
here for. And so,
Yeah.
it's like, how do we physically stay safe if we're also subjective to everybody else's whim, right? How
Yeah.
do we stay physically safe? Well, we teach as a people, right?
Mhm.
We teach as a people, and that's like kind of like where we're at right now in the collective. We're pulling in a lot of divine feminine energy that's very
Mhm.
nurturing and cultivating, but it's
Mhm.
also conversational, thoughtful, spiritual. And so everybody's going through all these freaking meltdowns right now because the collective is asking for change. We're
Yeah.
asking for change because of all the global triggers that are going on. None of us want a third world war. None of
Yeah.
us want the apocalypse to show up. What we
Yeah.
want is right action. That's like what we want as a collective. Yet none of us know how. That's where we're at.
Yeah.
Isn't that
Do you
wild?
do you think that like in some sense the world as a collective is hitting rock bottom in terms of like
Almost. We're almost at the bottom. Yes, we're
because
almost at
some
the bottom, Narita. You're absolutely right. Yes,
yeah
you got to hit that
because
fucking bottom hard in order for that shit to stop.
yeah because for me like the rock bottom it's like oh sometimes you find yourself in rock bottom, sometimes you find spirituality and vulnerability at the rock bottom.
I
So
think
what
so.
you're expressing, it sounds like, oh, like are we as a collective at the rock bottom where now we're open to be so vulnerable and just here, like this is my trigger, these are how
Willing, well,
like
what it
how
is like, have you ever felt that space where you know that where you're at is no longer going to work? You
oh
know
yeah,
where you're at, it's no longer going to work. And you
yeah,
go into that space of surrender and you're like, fuck it.
mm-hmm,
Whatever comes, comes.
yeah,
That is the rock bottom.
yeah.
That's what everybody is like moving toward. So that's why we're having like,
That
we've
just
all
gave me
hit
the
rock.
chills because I
We've all hit
remembering
our,
like those
right?
times where I'm like, oh my god, yeah. At
Right?
that point, it was like even if death came, I'm like, I'm okay with it. Like, okay.
Right. And so, really, what it is like everybody who's done any kind of self realization work, they're going to come into conversations with other people who have never even heard of that. And they're going to share what they do so that they can give ease to the next individual. And that's what we're doing as a collective. It's not going to come through governmental and
Yeah,
marketing and things like that. It's going to come from your next door neighbor. Your next
yeah,
door neighbor is going to start treating you different. You're going to start treating them different because you're
mm,
going to desire different. It'll become more inclusive because you'll have a desire and you're in surrender.
yeah,
So there's just like it's a
mm,
process. Like how many years do
yeah.
you think it's gonna take to know like your whole block, the whole
Oh
block you're living,
man,
right?
my own personal, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
like I'll be on my deathbed still in this moment of like processing.
Right.
And
Right.
then it'll be like this whole other chapter of like what is death in a deeper way.
Yeah. Well, okay. So now I have another question for you because I always
uh,
have questions. Okay.
yeah, I love it.
Okay. So we had talked about like maybe pulling a card, but like you had two different decks with you, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like, so we know that recognition, we talked a lot about recognition today, and then we also talked a lot about like being present and emoting. We talked about a lot of shit today.
I love
Anyway,
it.
so maybe what we could do is, we know that the next time that we meet, we're going to meet next Sunday at 10, maybe 10:30 would work better, because
Okay.
people jumped on at 10:30. So maybe
Okay.
that'll work better. So we'll probably do 10:30. We're still kind of formatting the show. We're looking to see who would like to be present and who will, like, when you guys show up, because we want to be of greatest value and service, obviously.
Mm,
And then we're still kind of like framing it. All
yeah.
right. So your feedback is super important to us. So if you enjoy like cards and stuff like that, I don't know, do you want to do readings and things like that?
We could. The ones that you have, I don't know too much how to read those cards.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Um,
Oh
yeah.
no. Huh.
You
That's
and those
why we would each have, right?
our own sets.
So I think, so my cards were about like where we're at as a collective, basically, right? So
Okay.
where we're at as a collective is that we are in our heart space, we're becoming more intuitive in our physical sensory awareness field, right? And then
Mhm.
the other card was that it showed that we were in like a major spiritual lesson of initiation, to where the fool, so the fool is at the very beginning of the story. So the story that we are
Mhm.
starting right now is, it's going to be
Brand new.
connected to your head brain and your heart brain. What's your story? And we're just starting out. So what would you consider? Let's find out from your cards. Okay.
Oh.
What, right? What helpful insights
Ooh,
we could
let's
use until next week.
okay, let's do the ancestor spirit. Let's see. So let me shuffle these cards. I love these cards. They're very I feel like they're both very grounded in our human, like our humanity, but also very grounded in like spirituality. It like
Okay.
combines both. Okay, let's see.
So would you like to, like, maybe next week we'll go ahead and we'll open the floor up to where like people could ask a question. We'll pull cards around it.
Yeah,
Okay,
I like
cool.
both. I
Not
like
just few readings. They got to ask us a question, so we have
question.
something to talk about.
Yeah, I
Sound
like
good?
that. I like where they ask questions. And then I love how it's like, oh, let's get in touch with ourselves and respond from that. And then we can pull a card to add
I
to
like
it.
that. Yeah, let's do
Yeah.
that. That's great. Okay, we have our format.
Okay. So this one says, oh, embrace your inner gypsy. Freedom, fun, and music.
Yay! Oh, that's nice.
Okay, so for this one,
Uh-huh.
yeah, they're all just so free and happy.
Yeah, I love that.
Even like the
Red
colors.
is an activation color as well. And there's 3 people dancing. So it's very celebratory energy.
Yeah.
And then it's talking about your inner world. So, yes, I
We
love
talked a
that
lot about our inner
connectivity.
world and
Right.
being
Hey, what do you
reflective.
think about illumination? Bringing yourself into illumination while you're doing your shadow work? Because that's really what's happening. You like that phrase?
I do. I love illumination. We should
Mhm.
call this that.
All these light bulbs go on when we talk about that.
It says here, do you want me to read the card part? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So there's 2. I won't read this
Well,
part.
before you read it, let's go ahead and set the cadence of what it could be applied to. All right. And what I mean by
Okay.
that is that, so we saw the card is representational, and then we want to say what it represents. So is this representative of like maybe what you could pull in if you're lacking, or what you can continue to build on and amplify if you're already there? How about that?
Okay.
Do you like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Well, one of the things that pops up for me, right, for this one is that, like, if you've never really done the inner work, is to look at it as embracing your within, right? Like, I think sometimes when we think about shadow work or inner work, it feels very heavy or it
Yeah,
feels very scary. And
right.
it's like, oh, it doesn't have to be that. It can be very much, okay, let me get to know myself, and it can be fun
Yeah.
looking at it like that.
Okay.
And it feels like if you are doing the work and you're in it, like, I think don't forget that it is fun. Like, add joy to it,
Right.
right?
Because you're finding
Like,
out who you are,
remember
right?
the intention. Yeah, and it's like, remember the intention, because it's like, I don't know if I can speak for everybody who's doing the work, but a lot of it is to be free, to be free from like our childhood stuff, to be free from our muck, to be free from things that are holding us back.
Yeah, I think so here's what happened for me, right? I think that all of us are seekers, right? To have shift and change. We all want that. And it's because we're in an experience that we're not in satisfaction with and we're not being authentic. We feel limited. So we're looking for a different experience that can allow us to fully express our spirituality. Our spirituality would be like our belief systems and everything. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And when we feel that safety and we feel that freedom, we move into our authenticity
Mm.
because we don't mind being who we are. We're not questioning it because there isn't a thousand things around us telling us that it isn't like us.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because like, well, the collective energy, there's no two experiences that are the same. We're in constant
Yeah.
creation. So we're at the leading edge. We're like right at the very beginning of everything because we're creating it. So we've never had the moment. It's perfection. It's all
Yeah.
perfection. I don't
Yeah.
think we're taught that though.
No, we're not. That's part of like, I think that's part of the stuff that you end up learning when you're doing this work, when you're doing the
Right?
inner work, when you're doing the shadow work.
So what would be your best advice for someone who's just beginning this work? Like where would you suggest that they like start? Okay,
Ooh.
let's say somebody's happening on this video and they
Uh,
don't really know where to begin or what shadow work is or what inner work is. Why don't you go ahead and kind of lay that out a little bit, like what
oh,
it means to
contact us.
you?
Reach out. Let us, we'll give you our numbers right now. No, just kidding.
We're doing empowerment, baby. Okay, so
Okay, well, if you
so
don't,
you
okay, if
would
you're listening to this and
or
you're
show
new,
up next week.
show up next week. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, if you're new to this and it's something that you're curious about, I would say it's like, oh, there's a curiosity and there's a desire in your heart for a reason. So listen to it, trust it, right? Like surround yourself with people, even if they're strangers that are in the same space of curiosity and exploring this space in their lives. And one of the things
Right.
that I would love to like also say is that because some people like just from what I've heard with clients and then also from like my own personal friends is that sometimes they're scared to be in this space because they don't know what they're going to find out, and it might be super heavy, super scary, super deep feeling, and they don't want to step into that space. And I would love to say is that at the end of the day, it's like it's still your power to go as far as you want to go. It's like at any point, if you're not comfortable, you can just stop wherever you're at and get curious still with other parts of yourself. And at the end, it could be fun. And remember the intention on why you're doing this work. And I also feel like your intuition will guide you. So at some point, it's like you didn't have to do anything. Like your intuition will lead you to where you have to be, to who you have to talk to the books that will fall on your lap, to the podcast, like to the show. It's like you're there.
Right, because you're already investigating it,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Even if you're just thinking about it, it's like you're already there.
right. That's it. You've already arrived.
Yeah.
You've already arrived. Inspiration will show up and it'll, wipe the street with your ass and everything will be fine. That's kind of like how it feels though, right? It feels
Yeah.
that way because you're reintroducing that charge that you felt in that powerlessness space. And
Mm,
when you're in powerlessness, you have a tendency to want to fix where you're at rather than recognize where you're at and then make a
mm,
choice to change it. And because we feel very subjective, we're constantly conditioned to
mm.
feel reactive. Like if this
Yeah.
happens, this is what you do. So we're problem solvers extraordinaire,
Yeah.
right? Troubleshooters. Oh, wait, I could fix
Yep.
it. I could do
Yep.
that. I can do that. I can do that. And basically, what it is learning I can be while that situation is happening. I can
Mm.
be while that situation is happening. And that will restore your
Yeah.
ability to drop into your body more often energetically, because that's why we have a lot of diseases, because we don't want to spend time inside of our bodies.
Yeah.
We want a pill to take us escape away from whatever the pain is,
Like the
or we
instant
want to
gratification.
Exactly. And instant gratification, when you start a spiritual process, right? A spiritual process with
Hmm.
purpose, like you know that you're doing it, right? Is is going to shift you in such a way to where you're going to feel ease, and you're going to feel lighter, and the process isn't going to feel good, but the result feels amazing, so you're going to keep doing it, and you're
Hmm.
going to feel like you're crazy doing it, like, why am I putting myself through all this?
Yeah.
But the idea is that you're learning your capabilities, you're learning, and you're bringing them into like the light, because it's all part of you. You can't escape
Yeah.
it. You can't walk away from it. You can't say, oh, yeah, that was before. I don't even need that. It's part of you. It's what makes up your decisions. It's the lens of your experience when you translate things. So when you can bring the charge down of something to where it isn't so prevalent and focused, it gives you more freedom and choice
Um,
in whatever decision making it is that you want in the future. And so I really, I, this is going to be good. We're going to talk
yeah.
about this. This is good.
I like that. I love
Yeah,
that.
this would be nice.
In maybe one of our next shows, I would love to talk about that tuning. What was that? The thing that you said, the bass.
Oh, the equalizer.
Yes, I
Yeah,
would
because
love
like
to.
that's what it is. We don't do anything like that anymore. Now we have like a remote that does the digital stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
But when
yeah,
you have hands on, like an old radio tuner, right? Where you turn the dial and you're looking
yeah,
for a certain station or a frequency. And that's what we're doing with ourselves, because our frequency changes every day. So we're tuning ourselves in to become more authentic. So, yes, I like that.
yeah. That'd be like a whole other conversation I would love to have with you.
Okay. Okay.
Because I'm
That sounds
having all
great.
these thoughts, but I'm like, oh, that's like a whole show.
Yes. Yes. Okay. All right. So we'll be back. Do you want 10 or 10:30 next Sunday? What would you like?
You mentioned 10:30 because people will pop up, so let's stick to 10:30. We'll play
Okay.
with it. Yeah,
Okay. That
yeah.
sounds lovely. All right.
Awesome. Thank
Really
you
nice to have you
guys.
guys join us. You guys have a great day. All right.
Yeah.
Thank
Yes.
you.
I
Thank
love you,
you.
Lucinda. Mwah.
I love you too.